Welcome to the Traverse PC web seminar on point codes. I thought we'd start today. What we're going to be looking at is a project that we did here, I don't know how many years ago. But we're looking at this property right here. This is Abel and Swank Insurance. What we've got is the Oregon Coast Highway, Highway 101, running to the northeast up here. We've got Highway 126 running to the east, 9th Street right here. And we're interested in this property right here on the corner of Highway 101 and 9th Street. So we've got this pseudo L-shaped building here and parking lot, this stuff. We've got a 7-Eleven here, gas station to the south, public library over here, things like that. But all we're really interested in is this property right here, the Abel and Swank Insurance Company. So that gives you an idea of what we're looking at. You're familiar with, situations similar to this with 2-lane streets intersecting 4-lane roads and highways. So, all right, so let's take a look at this in Traverse PC. So I've already loaded the file here. Here's what we've got. This is basically the deed record for the property line, and we've gone out into the field and collected field data here. So we've got 2 traverses of field data. I'll go ahead and tag them so that you can see them, get an idea of what we're looking at. So a bunch of side shots to the various features on the property. All right. So let's start this by asking a question. What are point codes? Well, point codes are numbers or abbreviations used to identify what the various points are in a survey. They're typically short to facilitate coding in the field and may or may not be descriptive of the points. So you could be using numeric codes like 121 is an oak tree, or 245 is a 3-port fire hydrant, etc. Or you can be using more descriptive, and this is what I recommend because it's just easier to remember in the field. I don't want to memorize a bunch of numeric codes that don't mean anything outside of that. So I might have TOE for toe of slope, CLF for a chain link fence, or whatever. It's totally up to you what you use as far as your point codes. The only thing that's required is a little bit of consistency. So the point codes are contained within the description of the point. They can also be stored in the attributes of the points. It's up to you. We can deal with them either way. It's your choice, and it's your choice on what codes to use. So I just recommend keep it simple, use whatever makes sense to you, and I recommend making them easy to understand. You don't have to worry about being consistent from job to job, although it does help, but if you use abbreviations that mean something, it's going to be easier just to stay consistent. But you can change over time, and you could add codes anytime you choose to. So if we take a look at some point codes in this file, if we take a look at the points manager, you'll see that we've got the various points in here along with their descriptions. So if we look at these, we're using BLDG is a building corner in this case, or top face of curb 1, EAC 1, etc., etc. So you can see the codes here. We can also see what's known as a code delimiter on some of these points. So this dash here is a code delimiter. So right here, this is 3 separate codes. This is an SW3, an EAC2, and a ramp. So 3 separate codes by using code delimiters. The codes that we use in Traverse PC, we we want you to use these because they can make you more efficient going down the road, and you can store your codes for future use, but you can also update them as you go along with no problem. This makes it very easy to come up with a code list over time, rather than, and don't think that you have to come up with your full code list all at once. You just build it one project at a time. It's very easily done, as you'll see. So after we bring in our data into a file like this, where we've got our record data in here, we brought in our field data, we want to evaluate what we have. So one of the ways to do this is to take a look at the traverses, as I said earlier. So I can tag them here so I can see what I've got. I can change the way they display by going to the traverse drawing settings, and let's say, well, let's turn off these side shot lines. They're just kind of in the way. So we can take a look at this and we can say, did we cover the whole area? Do we think we got all the features just by looking at it like this? Or we could go back into the traverse drawing settings and we could add the point descriptors if we choose to, so that we can see directly on the drawing what these are. But as you can see, it can get kind of cluttered. But I could use this to evaluate the field data, see if I think that I got everything the way I need it to be. And as needed, I can certainly go ahead and zoom in on an area. You know, what's going on down here? Well, wait a minute. What's going on up here on this northeast corner? There's all kinds of stuff here. So let's zoom in on that. We'll turn off zoom points. This is a tool that allows us to zoom in and see what's going on. Okay, so we've got sidewalk, traffic signal control box. Oh, all right. I see what we've got going on here. Okay, so these are the tools that can help you evaluate your data, see if you got what you needed to get, and see what you need to do next. So assuming this looks like we got all the data we needed, now it's time to take a look at our points. And what we want to do is we want to go to the points manager and we want to just scan through all of our points here in the points manager, because we're all human. We all make mistakes. Maybe there's typos in here. Well, now's the time to catch them. So what's the easiest way to catch them? You know, I might have intermingling of this kind of point with that kind of point. Maybe I shot a sidewalk point and then a couple more sidewalk points and then a tree. All right, so they're intermingled. So to make it easy, one of the things that we'll do is we'll come here to the points manager and we'll sort these points by description just by clicking on this description header. So now you can see we'll start at the top, and here's building corners. So these different codes are all together, so it makes it real easy to just sit here, scan through these, and see, are there any typos? So I could just scroll through. Well, here's a typo. Okay, I've got two codes on this, but it doesn't have the code delimiter. Well, that could be a problem. So I'm going to come in and add the code delimiter here, and add it here as well. Add that code delimiter and move on. Pardon me. So now here we've got two codes as well. This is an SW2 as well as a building corner. All right. So we're just scanning through. We're looking for anything that we see, and because they're grouped this way, it makes it very easy to see when something doesn't doesn't look right. It just makes it real easy to see and fix up front before we go, oh, it looks like I'm missing a couple of points or something because they didn't have the code delimiters on them. So now that's set. So you do need to be aware of code delimiters if you're going to use multiple codes on a point. All right, that's not always the case, in which case you don't need to worry about it. This is just one code. I don't need to worry about any delimiter. So going through and editing this up front, it just makes things easier going forward. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the point codes manager. That's where we will start working with our point codes. Now in this case, I have all my managers pinned and auto hidden over here on the right. So I've got tabs for each manager and I've got point codes at the bottom. I can also, if you're not aware of this, I can access my managers from the navigation toolbar right here. So here's all the managers, including the point codes manager. Or I can go to the Manage menu to access any manager. But in my case, I have them auto-hidden over on the right here. So I'm just going to come over to the Point Codes Manager. And what you can see right off the bat is that this file has its point codes already. Now, what I want to do here is I want to show you how this works building your codes over time. So I'm just going to delete a few codes so that you'll see what'll happen. So I'm just deleting those codes. Once I have a code list established, when I start a file, I'm going to come in to the Point Codes Manager and I'm going to bring in that code list like we've got right here. I'll do that by importing the point codes. And I'll have a list that looks like this. Now, my next step, once I've evaluated these points, I'm going to update these codes by, I'm going to update these codes by going to Tools and Update Codes. Now this is going to go out and it's going to look at all my descriptions in this file as well as my attributes if I choose to. So this is where you can tell it where the codes are. You could have a mix. We're also telling it that the first word in the description is a code. That saves us having to put that delimiter in the first word. Okay, now you can change the code delimiter. Warning here. Code delimiters can get kind of picky here. You need to, first of all, it needs to be something that you will absolutely never use as a part of a point description. So don't use a comma as a code delimiter, just in case you want to use a comma in a description at some point. All right. The dash was fairly standard on a lot. Was fairly standard on a lot of data collectors for a long time. So dash will probably work. You want something easy, but it needs to be unique. Okay, so this is our default setting. I'll go ahead and choose OK and watch what happens to our point code list. So what happened now, let me just pin this to the desktop so it doesn't go away. All right, so you can see now before I updated the codes, all of these codes had descriptions on them. So this is one reason I tell people it's important for you to put descriptions on here. It makes it easier going forward because now it's really easy for me to see which codes I have already set up. Okay, so I've got some, in this case we had 3 sidewalks on the property. So right here, this is why we don't typically use drawing commands, drawing codes. The begin line, end line stuff, because the point codes can pretty much handle all of that stuff for us. So if I have multiple features on a property, I'll use numbers. Like it might be fence 1, 2, 3, it might be barn 1, 2, 3, or BC for building corner, BC 1 for building 1, BC 2, etc. Things like this. So if you do it this way, we're going to end up with separate traverses for these different codes, and we're not going to need to worry about using drawing commands. The traverses will just handle it for us. So what do? If in this case we don't have a previous sidewalk traverse, which in this case we do, but let's say we don't, what do? What do we need to do to it? Well, one of the big things that we want to do with this code is we want to tell Traverse PC how to draw it when we tag that traverse for a drawing. I mean, that's really a lot of the ultimate goal, is to automate a large portion of your drawing process. So we want to tell Traverse PC how to draw this sidewalk traverse. So I'll just right-click it, and I'll come down to Modify Code, and I'll tell it that I want to go in and edit the traverse drawing settings. So I come in here and I take a look at what I've got. Well, right now, a solid line, yeah, it's a sidewalk. Basically, all I want is a solid line. So I don't want point numbers. I don't want any symbols. I just want a solid line. So once I've got this set, I can say OK. So now, the very next thing I do, once I've got that set up, I'll fill in the description so that I know now that I have set that one up. All right? Now, let's say, I really don't want to do that for all the other traverses that are going to draw that way, because I got several that'll draw that way. My sidewalks, my top face of curb, these various things, they're all going to draw that way. Well, what I can do then is I can right-click this code, go to Modify Code, and choose Copy Traverse Drawing Settings. So I've copied those settings. I could now select all the other traverses that I want to draw that way, right-click them, and paste traverse drawing settings. So now, all at once, I just did these others as well. So now I'd fill in descriptions. Typo. And yes, you could use a copy and paste, just copy text and paste text, that kind of thing. And I got a typo in this one. Does it matter? Do I care? Well, I may. All right, so I'm going to edit that by pressing my space bar. Add the of there. I see that, well, I'm going to edit all three of these. Rather than top face curb, I'm going to say top face of curb, just because that's the way I like it. All right, so I've got these updated. Now, I want you to notice something here. Notice the columns here in the point codes, in my point codes manager. Your point codes manager may not be set up this way. Be aware of this. All of our views are user customizable. So if I go to the Tools menu, I can come down here to View, and I can format this view. So these are the fields that are available to me, and I have them all displayed in my point codes manager. So be aware of this, all right, because there's something we are going to be looking at here shortly. All right, so once we get these all set up, then we want to store these for future use. This I don't, to be honest, I don't even know what this point is. There's one point that's labeled this way. I'm not going to worry about this one. Once we get this set the way we want, we'll go to Tools, and we will export these codes to something like a default point code table, or call it whatever I want to call it. All right, so this is my Mark Lull code table. All right, so I've got it stored. So next job I do, I will be able to pull that code list into my drawing. Hang on a moment. No, I'm okay here. So I will be able to pick from my code lists by name. This can be very handy for you. If you work for, I know some of our users have contracts with some large companies, and they have their own ways of coding. Well, I could have multiple companies that I work for, and I could save code lists for each of those individual companies and just pull their list for my current project. All right, so that's why we export the codes. You will also have noticed save codes. Now this just saves the codes with this file. As you work with the point codes, we are going to store a point code list with each file. So this Learn Point Codes TRV file has an associated point code list. That's why when I opened this, we saw the point codes that were already associated with this project. Okay? All right. So, what are we going to do next? Let's go back to our traverses, first of all. So you remember we've got our record data traverse and a couple of field data traverses. Let's get the field data traverses off the screen because we're about to start working with our point codes to see how they do. So back to our point codes. We are now ready to sort these points into traverses by code. So to do this, we are going to go to Tools, Sort Points into Traverses by Code. Oh, makes sense. A lot of options here. Let's just take a look here. Sort what? Yes, I want to sort all the codes that I have points for. Now, when it says sort all, if I have a bunch of codes that have no points associated, it's not going to sort anything, so you don't need to worry about that. I can select or tag various codes. I have never really found much need of that, but you may. And once again, I can tell it, am I looking in descriptions or attributes or both? And then there are several options over here. One of them that's very important is case sensitive. So for example, if I have, let's say I typed in 1SS in lowercase. If I say it's case sensitive, Traverse PC is going to read a capital SS as a different code than a lowercase ss or a capital S lowercase s. So these are things to keep in mind. Do you want to tell it that it's case sensitive? Or if we turn it off, it would read all four options there on that code as an SS, whether it's capital, lower, or mixed. All right. So there are various settings here. We're not going to look at all of them. We definitely want first word in point description or attribute is a code. All right. And we'll just go ahead and say OK. So, okay, it just went away. What happened? Well, if we go back to our Traverses Manager, we're now going to see all of these different traverses. All right, so it looked at all of our points. It created traverses for each code that it saw. Let's start taking a look at some of them. I like the stepping stones. We were talking about them a minute ago. Let's take a look at them. This one was already set, so here it is right down here in the southeast corner. Looks like we got a row of stepping stones. Signposts, let's see. There they are. So we can see where our signposts are. Power poles. There's our power line running across the north end. All right, let's get down to the good stuff. Let's take a look at the building. Oh, wow, man, that doesn't look right. So what the heck happened here? Why does this look this way? Well, the reason this looks this way is because our field crew did not shoot this sequentially, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. Our field crew, they just didn't. They shot this corner and this corner maybe from here, and they just shot it from different places, and so the corners aren't sequential. And if we take a look, if we go into this building traverse and take a look at it, we'll see that. So Traverse PC, it had no idea what to do, so it just put them in here in numeric sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 90. All right? So, how do we resolve this issue? What can we do here? Are we going to have to sit here and figure out this is this point, that's that point, and then put them into the right sequence manually? No. What I can do is I can come in here, and there is a tool in the Traverse view. Tools, Sort Points. All right. Now, sort points, it's automatically said, okay, he has point 1 selected. Let's start there. And it's this entire traverse. All right. This will do a nearest neighbor sort. So I hit OK. There we go. That looks better. So I told it start at point 1, and it did a nearest neighbor sort going around this building. Okay. So this tool is available to you. Now, it will not work in every situation. Notice this building corner right here. All right. Well, this happens to be point 3. All right. Let's sort starting at that corner. Let's see what happens. Tools, sort points, all of them. Okay. It does a nearest neighbor sort. All right, so it goes up here rather than going down here. Okay, and that's the only point in this traverse. Whoops, that's the only point in this traverse that will not work. Any other point, no problem. So if I choose point 90, sort points, no problem. It's going to work. All right, now all I need to do is close this traverse by recalling point 90. At the bottom, 90. There we go. And let's regenerate that. It doesn't have I'm not sure why it does not have the correct square footage on there. Let's go to the closure view. Here's a good lesson for you. If ever you see that it's not the correct area, go to your closure view. Check your closure settings. Okay, it should be 1950.91 square feet. All right, so let's check that. Let's go back now to the drawing and regenerate it. So now it's correct. So if there's ever a case where you're looking at that, the closure view controls that. So why did it say 4 feet? I don't know that answer right at the moment. That's something I will look into. But there's our building. Okay, now let's go on to my favorite traverse. I tell people a joke about this traverse. Let's tag this sidewalk. Oops, I'm sorry. This is the point codes manager. I meant to be in the traverses manager. Let's tag the sidewalk traverse. And oh my God, the field crew must have been drunk when they shot that. So they weren't drunk. We took this data and manipulated it a bit to illustrate the sort tools that are available to you. This is not something you're going to run into very often. However, it is something that you may run into. So be aware that we have these tools available to you. All right. So first thing we need to know, where does this sidewalk run? Well, it runs along 9th Street, turns the corner, runs down Highway 101, and then goes up towards the front door. That's what this should look like. So you've already seen the nearest neighbor sort that we did on the building. But I want to show you something else. Remember I mentioned that this view may not look like yours. Well, look at this column. It's labeled sort. And look at what's in here. All of these are set to no. Now, there are a couple of ways to do this. What this is not sort these into traverses. No, this is, do I want to automatically do a nearest neighbor sort? So if I take this, and I can do this a couple of ways. I could just type yes, all right, or like our building, okay, I wish that had done it automatically. I can right-click it, modify code, and say sort nearest on. All right, so it changes it to yes. Me, I'll just take a look. Edge of asphalt, yes, let's sort that. Yes, etc. Power pole, probably I might need it at some point. So I'm just setting up my code list. Sidewalks, absolutely. Top face of curb, you bet. All right, that ought to be good enough. All right, so you see what happened when those weren't turned on. So at this point, I would save my code list out for next time. Let's go back to our traverses now. I'm going to just delete all these traverses. Now we'll go back to our point code list. And we'll sort points by code again. Just going to say okay because it's the way I left it. Let's take a look at those exact same traverses. Let's look at that building. Oh, that looks good. Let's just open it. And, almost a joke here. Let's just open it and this time it got it right. All right, so there's our building. Let's take a look at that sidewalk we were looking at. Once again, I'm in the point codes manager. That's because it's not auto hiding. It's got me messed up. There's that sidewalk, stepping stones. Let's take a look. How's this? Okay, that's where that ought to be. And that, okay, that's looking good. So as you can see, this sort nearest tool can help you in a lot of cases. So people ask me, well, you're not going to do that, okay, right? It's not something you're going to run into regularly. When would this happen? Well, one example I can give you that came from one of our users is they were out in the field. One day they were working a long road project. They started at one end of the project one day, and then just to change things up, they went back the next day and went from the other end. So they worked from both ends to the middle. Okay, well, dump all those points into one traverse, do a nearest neighbor sort, and you're good to go. Be aware that it is a nearest neighbor sort. It's not magic. So there are certain things that won't work. Let's say you have a 15-foot wide median strip down the center of a highway, and you're taking shots every 30 feet down both sides. If you sort that, it's just going to zigzag across it. So it does not do miracles, but it can help you a whole lot. So that's point codes in a nutshell. Just you just be aware that they can automate pretty much all of your drawing for you. Just a little bit of stuff we need to do, Let's go into this traverse here and put in the curb return. So jump in here. 0.111 southeast southwest. I believe my curb return. let's come in here and we'll do Kogo, fit horizontal curve, and we'll say compute and apply and close that. There's my curb return. Let's say this is one side of a sidewalk. I want the other side of the sidewalk. I can do, now it's not going to work because we've got those other sidewalks, but we go in here and we do a right-of-way offset. Let's say this is, I want to I don't know which side of this line I want, but it's a 6 foot wide sidewalk. Okay, so let's make it 6 feet wide and compute and close. So here's our 6 foot wide. Oh, I got both sides. I didn't really want both sides. Kogo right-of-way offsets. If you're not aware of this, I can undo that. So bottom line here, use the tools any way you need to get your project out the door. So that's it. You can see why we use point codes the way we do. And come back and see us for our next web seminar. Have a great rest of your day and week, and I hope you enjoy using Traverse PC. Thank you.